Hi, and welcome back to another video. And today we'll be talking about the 2025 UK local elections that have been taking place last night and early today and this morning. And what we are seeing really here is a clear picture. We are seeing a lot of frustration with the British people, not just with Labour, but also with the Conservatives, with the two big main parties, right? Labour is the governing party, the Conservatives are the official opposition, and we also have Reform here, who are clearly having the most momentum in these local elections. Now, these are the first local elections where Reform UK really is participating in, where Reform really wasn't much of a party until Nigel Farage took over leadership during the right in the middle, actually, of the 2024 campaign. He got a lot of immediate attention. A lot of attention. He got millions of votes. However, it wasn't enough to really make much of a difference in parliament seats, right? And Labour won that 401 or 2 seat majority. Conservatives lost so many seats. And almost they got like 120 seats or something like that. Obviously, the Liberal Democrats did well as well, and Reform UK only won 5 parliament seats. Since then, there's been good and bad news for Reform. The bad news being, there's been civil war. There's been disagreements within the party, and they went down to 4 seats after one of their MPs were forced out of his seat after damning allegations. And there seemed to be a divide within the party. However, that is not what we are seeing last night and this morning, where we are seeing a lot of momentum with the voters. With that civil war that happened a couple months ago within Reform UK seems to not have done any damage to Reform UK, and it's not what voters cared about. They are frustrated with not just the Labour Party, but also the Conservative Party. And it's why I don't think that this country, these local elections, are showing that this country isn't shifting right or left, right? Because you see the Labour Party, lose 160 seats, and then you see the Conservative Party losing 565 seats. But you also see the Liberal Democrats, another, leftist party, gaining 131 seats, and you also see Reform UK, a very, very conservative party, gain 575 seats. So I don't think that the United Kingdom is really shifting towards the left or the right, as the United States would, or Canada just did. I think that there is a clear frustration with both parties, and I think this is a total collapse of the two-party system, where the two biggest parties in the United Kingdom are losing support within British voters. I think the coalition that the Labour Party was able to build last year, where they gained all that momentum, they won that 400-seat parliament, huge supermajority, I think that has collapsed. Now, obviously, these aren't parliament seats, right? These are council seats. These are, council seats, offices, that they have a big effect on everyday's lives. And if Reform UK is winning over so far, there are, as you can see here, we are 18 to 23 councils in, so not all the results are in yet, but this is the clear picture we're seeing. And if Reform UK is winning so far 575, they could be up to 600 by the time they're done, or even more than that. They are clearly winning the majority of the council seats. Now, there are other elections I want to look at, but if Reform UK is winning 575 council seats here, then that puts a lot of responsibility on Reform UK, because for the longest time, since June of 2024, since Nigel Farage became their leader almost a year ago now, ever since then, they really haven't had much responsibilities like the Conservatives had and like Labour has had, right? The Conservatives during the campaign were the incumbent, government. They were incredibly unpopular. Rishi Sunak was very, very disliked. There were a lot of controversies going around within the party, and they lost the election to the opposition at the time, which was Labour. Now, Keir Starmer wasn't exactly popular either, and as of right now, as I showed you guys in my previous video, he is still very unpopular. The only reason why Keir Starmer was gaining momentum in popularity despite still being unpopular was because he was the leader of the opposition, which he no longer is, right? The Conservatives are now the opposition party, but there is still that reminder within the minds of British voters of what, where their country was when the Conservatives were in charge. And I think they still haven't forgiven them. I think that that they still have a bad taste in their mouth when the Conservatives were leading the country. But that also doesn't mean that they are favoring over Labor either, which is the current incumbent, governing party. They also, disapprove of Labor as well. Now, Reform UK is very different, and so are Liberal Democrats, because Liberal Democrats haven't been the opposition or the governing party. They're just this third party that has been doing really well in recent elections. And if they continue to do well, maybe they'll become more of a threat to Labour or the Conservatives. But as of right now, I don't think they will. However, it could always change in the future. But Reform UK is the big one I want to talk about, because for the longest time, right, Reform hasn't really, had much, elections or responsibilities. They only won 5 parliament seats, right? There's very little responsibility in that. And it's not like they're the opposition where they're expected to, really become, the voice of opposition to Labour. But now with these council seats, or now with these local elections, Reform UK has won a huge, big majority of these seats. And these, council seats are what going to be affecting the everyday lives of the British people. So now Reform UK has big responsibilities, and they have to put up with them, like Labour does, like the Conservatives do, and even the Liberal Democrats. These are the first time that the Reform UK are winning these council seats. And so now these people elected to these offices are now going to be expected to deliver for the British people, like Labour is trying to do, or like the Conservatives tried to do. And if the Reform fails to do that, then that would be a responsibility that, maybe they're not up to the task, and maybe, they lose their momentum. But as of right now, that's not happening, right? Reform UK clearly has the momentum. I think the Liberal Democrats are, doing well because they're probably taking stuff away from the Conservatives or maybe Labour. Maybe, a lot of the leftist voters, kind of like what we're seeing in Canada, going to the NDP to the Liberals, now going to the from the Labour to the Liberal Democrats. Or they're just piling away from the Conservatives. The point here is that the majority of these seats being lost are from the Conservatives. A lot is also from Labour, but most of it is from the Conservatives. And when you're the opposition party, you are expected to do well, not lose 500 seats. The only reason they are is because in 2021, the Conservatives performed very well, Labour performed very poorly. And most people would look at this and say, well, Labour's the governing party. What the heck are they doing in 5th place? Labour performed very poorly in 2020. They performed, I believe, second. They performed very poorly. It was a point where Keir Starmer even considered resigning as leader of the Labour Party. Although that didn't happen, right? And the Labour Party went on to win a lot more council elections. But this is the first one since 2021 where Labour has performed horribly. But Conservatives are continuing on this horrible losing streak, where they have now once again lost the big portion of their seats. And I expect they will continue in future elections. And if this continues happening, there are actually, I don't know if I have the article up yet. There are the voices that were calling for Kemi Badenoch to resign as leader or be replaced or voted out. Those are now getting louder. As you can see here, there's an exclusive where senior Tories plan to ask Robert Jenrick to make a bid to become Tory leader. Now, for those who don't know, Robert Jenrick ran in the Conservative leadership election to replace Rishi Sunak in late of 2024 after the general election where the Labour won their big landslide victory. So there is a real dissatisfaction with the leadership of Kemi Badenoch. And that because of her leadership and the disapproval of the Conservatives, they have lost so many more seats, much more seats than Labour. Like, I expected going into this, I thought Labour was going to get wiped out. I mean, they're still losing lots of seats, but nothing compared to the Conservatives. Nothing compared to the Conservatives. However, I do want to move down here and look at some of these elections and races here. So we have these council results, right? We have, obviously, these are the ones like with no majority. Like, look at this one. This one has like it's a conservative loss. There's no party majority. You have to have a specific no party majority, to win these. However, you can do see a lot of reform and a lot of liberal Democrats. Like, I'll go to this one, right? This is a liberal Democrat win here. Liberal Democrats gained for no party majority. So originally this was no party majority, and Liberal Democrats were able to win this. Liberal Democrats are having a very good local election result, and so is Reform, right? We have this one, Reform won. They won a whole bunch of these seats. They won over 500. This is a Reform UK gain from Conservative, right? Very good for Reform. Very good for Reform. So we're seeing a lot of, these council results go in the favor of either Reform or Liberal Democrats. Labor and the Conservatives are losing a whole bunch. Now, if we go to the mayor results, it's completely different, right? We have Labor and Reform and the Conservatives, winning these mayor elections. However, I'd argue that Labor obviously winning the most here, which some of it's been really close. Right? Okay, so there's a council. These are the mayor elections, right? Labor won Doncaster, and they won these other two, right? West of England. Reform has won these two, and the Conservatives have only won one. Now, they've been able to flip this because this was previously Labor. This was a Labor hold. These, Reform was able to win. These are also Labor holds. So when it comes down to, the mayor, I think that, in my personal opinion, I thought Labor did pretty well, right? You have this one, right? West of England, right? Look at this. Labor hold. Now this one was right. This one was originally a conservative held one, which Labor was able to flip in 2021, and now in 2025, Labor has held it once again. We could look at some of the other ones here. This is the only one the Conservatives have been able to win. And this is a gain from Labor. So obviously this isn't a result Labor probably wants to be seeing. This is probably the only really good performance from the Conservatives that they've had so far, and this is going to be a win that Kemi Badenoch is going to try and push on a narrative, although I don't think it'll be successful, right? We have another Labor win here in Doncaster, where Labor was able to hold this one, so this is something they like to see, and we also have here, right, some other, Reform wins for these mayors. This was Reform UK win. And then we also have this one, right, which is another Reform UK win. So despite the majority of these wins here for the mayor results, being that mostly Labor has won like 3 out of the 6 here. Labor's won 3, the Reform has won 2, and the Conservatives have won only 1. So I think that is really telling, but in my personal opinion, I think that Labor's done pretty well, although the Reform momentum clearly showing here, and the Conservatives only managing to hold on to this only one mayor result really is telling. Although it is good that it is good for the party that it is a gain from Labor. So I think that is something that Kemi Badenoch will probably pull off, or claim that is a win. Here are a lot of the, England Council results, which I showed you guys earlier, right? Reform has 575, they gained 575. Liberal Democrats at 327, they gained 131. Conservatives 266, they've lost 565 seats. All right, independents are people who, identify as independents. They've got 79, they lost 12 seats. Labor has 78, they lost over 160. The Greens at 74, they've gained 42. And of course, you have some of the, other third-party parties that really aren't, known here, like Resistance Association, where, they have 2 and they lost 1, or some of these other ones. Or we also have No Overall Control, where this is a, a specific party, like, say, Reform or Conservative, Liberal Democrats, or Labor isn't able to win a clear majority, and it just goes to, no over control or no party. And you can see that it's happened 9 times, and it is an improvement of 3, compared to 2021. And we also have the mayor results I showed you earlier, right? The Conservatives were able to flip this one from Labor. Labor was able to hold this one, where they previously won it last time. Reform were able to win 2 of these. They were no flips. Obviously no hold, since Reform, really wasn't a thing in 2021. And also you have these 2 Labor holds. So yeah, those are the Labor elections. Or not the Labor elections, oh my goodness. These are the local elections in the United Kingdom so far. They're interesting. However, we have had some by-elections. As you can see here, the Reform UK is now back to 5 seats in Parliament. as I've mentioned, a couple months ago, there was this big civil war within Reform UK, where one of their MPs were forced to resign, after allegations of bullying, and so they dropped down to 4 seats, which isn't something Reform wanted to see because they were already very, very, very small. Right, you had other, other parties like Liberal Democrats at 72, Labor at 401, Conservatives at 121. So that wasn't something they wanted to see. But now they have won their 5 seats back in Parliament, which sure is an improvement. But now they're kind of back, where they started. Let me read a little bit of this. This is CNN. It's been a huge night for Reform. Fraud told reporters on Friday. This is Heartland Labour Party. Their vote has collapsed, and much of it has come to us. Thursday's vote was triggered when the Labour lawmaker resigned earlier this year after he was convicted for punching a man in the street. Reform also won a mayoral election in Greater Lincolnshire, Central England, but later Labour had held on to retain 3 other mayor races. Prime Minister and Labour leader Keir Starmer conceded to journalists that the results were disappointing for his party, but pledged to go further and faster on the change that people wanted to see. So yeah, Reform is now back to 5 seats in Parliament. It'll be very interesting to see. Obviously, this election result for them, this Reform UK win for this 5th seat in Parliament is actually a flip for going to Labour to Reform. So also not something, Labour wants to see, because Labour's been trying to push this narrative that Reform UK always harms the Conservatives. When Reform now is trying to push this narrative that they are now the opposition, to challenge the Labour Party, and that the Conservatives have been left out, to really just die as a party. If the Conservatives are able to come back at this, then that'd be a huge comeback, but it does not look like it's going to be happening. As you can see, this horrible result for the Conservatives and also for the Labour, but much more for the Conservatives. And, we also have, maybe there might be some coup for Kemi Badenoch, as she has, made it clear earlier tonight that she is not going to be stepping down as leader, and that the results were disappointing, but, she was going to be staying on. So we'll see if she's going to be able to survive, and I will keep you guys updated. But until then, that is it for today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, please like and subscribe, and I will see you all in the next video. Bye.